Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahawashi, Bahasham, Barakahak Wadash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahawashi. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone who ruled and teach well. In peace and salutations to you sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the Brother Ra'aya with another video, and I'm going to start it off in Psalms chapter 64, verse 8. So they shall make their own tongue to fall upon themselves. All that see them shall flee away. And with these Edomites, or so-called white people as they're known today out here, hey, you've got a lot of these whistleblowers and alternative media Edomites calling out the Edomites that are in the government and the elites for all their wicked plans that they're trying to enact. But in this video, I'll be dealing with an Edomite who's in that upper echelon, who let his own tongue fall upon himself. And I'm going to be profiling most of this video from Lena Petrova's YouTube channel titled Truth Exposed. West wants 26 trillion with a T in Ukrainian rare minerals in exchange for weapons and debt. And as we'll see in this clip, U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham pretty much, spilled the beans, let his own tongue fall upon himself by saying that, look, the reason we need to beat Russia and Ukraine is so that U.S. and other Western markets can get a hold of those natural resources in Ukraine. It's not about democracy or fighting for the freedom of the people, which it's never been with these Edomites. Those talking points are just covers so that these Edomites can be justified in going into these different countries and overthrowing their sovereign leaders and governments and setting up puppets so that they can grape that nation and its people of its resources. But we're living in the last days, the last seconds of the last days, where Esau Edom is being made bare and being shown that he is the wicked, the devil and Satan that the Bible speaks of. But this is a fair use copyright disclaimer. I do not own any of the footage in this clip, nor do I stand to gain from it monetarily. It is simply for educational purposes.
Hello everyone, welcome back. Thank you for being here. You know you chose the wrong career as a politician when you do your adversaries' work for them. My understanding is that in politics, once you hit the point when all your opponent has to do is to quote you directly, word for word, in order to benefit their own agenda, things aren't exactly going in your favor. As Ukrainian media channels are posting that Ukrainian cities and towns cannot find men to perform typically male labor-intensive jobs in the city, although of course typically it would be a simple thing to do to find labor for that, the problem now is there are simply not enough men left anymore. But Senator Lindsey Graham says that is not good enough. Send whoever's left to the front because Ukraine is sitting on $1 trillion worth of mineral resources that he would really love to get his hands on. Don't get me wrong, I want the US economy to thrive just as much as I want to see the economies of every single country in the world thriving. But using several generations of poor Ukrainians, because that is precisely who's sent to the front, poor Ukrainians, those who didn't have the means to flee the country as Ukrainian corrupt politicians fled the country. Using these people as tools to help you get your hands on their natural minerals, on their natural resources, is just so extraordinarily low. Here's Senator Lindsey Graham himself.
And hey, that's just one of the reasons and the myriad of reasons why you Edomites are going to receive, no mercy, once you're in slavery in the kingdom. And after that 1,000 years, your entire nation being culled from the planet because, you afflicted the children of Israel without mercy. And, you've treated this planet like a trash can. And what? Even with your own people, you use them as a means to an end so that these elites and higher-up Edomites, can fill their pockets. This is Isaiah chapter 14, verse 20, thou shalt not be joined with them in burial. And when you read up, it's going into the other nations, the other heathen nations, talking about how is this the man that made the earth to tremble when Esau is taken out of power, and what all the heathens, are in slavery during the first 1,000 years of the kingdom of heaven. They're going to look at Esau and be like, wow, is this terrible man that, made these nations fear him, that everybody was afraid to even as so much as say anything wrong against him at one point. And we're seeing it begin now with these different nations, calling out you Edomites for your colonialist, oppressive, racist, policies and agendas and wars that you've been pushing for the last 500 years or so. And like I said, after that first 1,000 years, hey, you Edomites aren't going to get to take part in, the fruits of the kingdom of heaven, but these other nations will. They're going to be at rest, buried, so to speak, because when a body is buried in a grave, what do they have that on the tombstone? Rest in peace. But you're not going to be buried, so to speak. You're going to be left out there to rot. But this is Isaiah 14, verse 20. Thou shalt not be joined with them in burial, being at peace, finally, in the kingdom of heaven after that first 1,000 years, because thou hast destroyed thy land. Here you are in America doing what? Fracking, which is leading to environmental degradation, deforestation, spraying chemtrails, polluting the food with GMOs, polluting the water. The list goes on. And slain thy people. Those Ukrainians are also Edomites. And these Western Edomites being led by America are what? Using them as a means to an end to take control of their natural resources over there. The seed of evildoers shall never be renowned. And you Edomites are getting shameful spewing on your glory. You're being exposed as the liars and the cheats and the thieves that you are. And in the kingdom of heaven, hey, you're simply going to be known as Esau Edom, the basest of men. Oh, and real quick, where it says, thou hast destroyed thy land. I gave some examples for America, but look at over in Ukraine. That's some lands that Edomites dwell in, and you're using that as a battlefield, having it destroyed to, again, hey, get those natural resources.
Speaking to Zelensky, and I will remind you that Zelensky's presidential term expired on May the 20th, 2024. Take a look.
Damn ad.
I'm here with President Zelensky. I am such a admirer of what you and your country have done. You're trying to stop the Russians so we don't have to fight them. They don't want any American troops. They just need the weapons to free their country of a terrible invasion. They're sitting on $1 trillion worth of minerals that could be good to our economy. So I want to keep helping our friends in Ukraine. We can win this. They need our help.
Yes, we need, and we have already. The biggest help is the support of American people and support of our friends. Thanks to Lindsey and his colleagues, to congressmen and senators from the United States. Thanks for this support, bipartisan support. Thank you so much.
Peace is coming.
Yes, soon.
Graham is right in that Ukraine does have vast natural resources. Critical minerals mining is one of the biggest businesses today, with governments around the world racing to secure access to those resources that will allow an efficient transition to sustainable energy production. In the case with Ukraine, exploration and mining licenses have reportedly already been awarded to Australian, UK, US, and Turkish companies. Companies whose interests are now being actively defended by Ukrainian men and women on the front lines. According to this map, all the minerals and other resources are valued at approximately 26 trillion with a T dollars. There are fossil fuels such as coal, oil and gas, and minerals including iron ores, cobalt and lithium that are needed for green energy transition, copper and zinc, sulfur, uranium, gold, and a range of other valuable resources. It was not the first time that the US senator openly used Ukraine's natural resources to justify, to promote continuing the war. Here's him again. This was another interview that he recently gave, and in this particular interview that you're about to watch, Graham is taking his time to explain precisely what resources Ukraine has. He studied it well. He says Ukraine is in the top 10 globally for stores of iron, manganese, titanium, graphite, and uranium. It also has some of the largest coal, oil, and gas reserves in the world, he says. Take a look.
They're sitting on $10 to $12 trillion of critical minerals in Ukraine. They could be the richest country in all of Europe. I don't want to give that money and those assets to Putin to share with China. If we help Ukraine now, they can become the best business partner we ever dreamed of. That $10 to $12 trillion of critical mineral assets could be used by Ukraine and the West, not given to Putin and China. This is a very big deal how Ukraine ends. Let's help them win a war we can't afford to lose. Let's find a solution to this war, but they're sitting on a gold mine.
These minerals are essential in making.
Hey, but I thought this war was about, democracy and freeing those Ukrainians from the oppressive Russians. Like every other war, America and these Western European powers have fought, it's all been based on lies and bullshit. It reminds me of a quote from a World War II movie called The Thin Red Line, where one American soldier was asking another American soldier, what do you think this war is about? And he said, no. The one soldier said his opinion, but then the soldier that asked him the question said, it's all about real estate. These wars are all about getting resources and positioning yourselves better over your adversaries. Democracy, freedom, all those are just, subterfuges to justify those wars. Now I'm going to go to Psalms chapter 55, verses 20 to 21. He hath put forth his hands against such as be at peace with him. He has broken his covenant. And an example of that is look up something called the Minsk Accords. It's either the Minsk Accords or the Minsk Agreements. And these were, agreements that were made before the war in Ukraine to where, pretty much the Western powers said they wouldn't attack, Russian, allied areas in Ukraine. So, Russia was like, okay, we'll get in these accords because we're taking your word. But then what happened? You had Zelensky's government attack the Donetsk and Luhansk regions, which in turn had Russia go in there and start this whole war off. Hey, they had broken the covenants with their own Edomite brothers. Verse 21, the words of his mouth were smoother than butter. We must stop the Russians and Putin, who's the new Hitler, from bringing totalitarianism and oppression to the Ukrainian people. They're crying for freedom and democracy, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords. The real reason is that we want those natural resources estimated in the trillions in Ukraine so that Russia and China don't get them. And when you look at Ukraine, it's known as one of the most corrupt, European countries in Europe. They're high in human trafficking, in drug trade, et cetera, et cetera. This is Micah chapter 2. I'm going to read verses 1 to 2. Woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. Behind the scenes, the real goal is to, again, get those natural resources and also, create another forward operating position to eventually attack Russia. When the morning is light, they practice it. But to the public, they say it's for freedom and democracy because it is in the power of their hand. The earth has been given into the hands of the wicked. So while these Edomites, these elites like the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers are in power, They're able to do these little agendas and cast out, this deception out there. But now that we're getting to the end of their power, hey, Edomites at all levels, from the elites to the U.S. government, and this facade that Western Europe puts up as the good guys is falling apart. Verse 2, and they covet fields and take them by violence, such as sending Ukrainian men and women and Western mercenary forces into Ukraine to what? Take control of those lands to keep the Russians out, and houses, and take them away. And what did we just have a couple of weeks ago? Western mercenary, NATO forces make an incursion into Russia, into Kursk, to, try to, take some territory. And now these Western powers are talking about giving Ukraine long-range missiles to be able to strike deep into Russia to hit critical assets and take them away. So they oppress a man and his house, even a man and his heritage, which, hey, you Edomites, especially those Amalekites, those little hats, have done to the children of Israel, the true children of Israel, consisting of the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, taking our identity for yourself and giving us these bywords, we're called by. Make some space.
Chips, smartphones, solar panels, laptops, and electronic vehicles. In early 2023, Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal said that Ukraine will allow foreign investors to develop 26 separate fields of deposits of titanium, uranium, lithium, and salt. The largest investor is BVG Group, an investment company that was established in 2015, a year after the Maidan coup of 2014. It was established by a famous Ukrainian oligarch, Gennady Butkevich, who is actively partnering with Western entities to mine and export rare earth minerals from Ukraine to Western countries. In early 2024, BVG met with the British Parliament, members of the House of Lords, and state ministers to agree on the new critical minerals mining project that will help the United Kingdom to develop advanced technologies and promote the transition to clean energy. BVG's news release further lays out the appeal of Ukraine's natural resources to its Western consumers. Ukraine has all the prerequisites to become one of Britain's main suppliers of critical minerals crucial for advanced technologies and the green energy transition. 117 plus, just think about that, 117 plus types of minerals have been discovered across Ukraine's rich subsoil. In particular, the country has reserves of 22 out of 30 raw material resources that have been identified as critical by the EU. Ukrainian lands have significant deposits of beryllium, zirconium, titanium, rare earth, and other minerals. Graphite reserves in Ukraine are among the largest in the world. Many Ukrainian deposits are located on Europe's doorstep, it says, which provides profitable logistics with low transportation costs. And by the way, graphite is critical in nuclear technology, so that is going to be another branch that will be actively developed. One could argue that this is just market economy, let them sell, except that in this particular case, this is not market economy. In a country that has long been the poorest in Europe due to its extreme corruption, we all know that, Ukraine is the richest in natural resources. Privatization of land, as well as sales and leases of rare earth extraction fields, are awarded to shell companies that were organized with the sole purpose to drain the resources out of the country and into the pockets of select few. In a country where, according to the World Bank, as of 2022, the poverty rate surged from 5% to 22%, nearly a quarter of the population lives below the poverty line, allowing foreign private companies to exploit natural resources is yet another crime without reinvesting back into the economy and the reconstruction. Remember, this scenario is always the same: steal the wealth of a nation and punish its citizens, push them deeper and deeper into poverty. This is what's happening in Africa. It has been happening for centuries, as well as in many other parts of the world, including Latin America. Rinse and repeat. The scenario is always the same. At least
They covet fields and lands and take them by violence. And like my boy said in the Thin Red Line, it's all about the real estate. But that's it with that clip. Now I'm going to close it out in Habakkuk chapter 2. I'm going to start at verse 4. Behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith. And that's speaking of Esau, whose soul is not upright in him. As it says in Psalms 58 verse 3, the wicked are estranged from the womb. You Edomites were created to be the wicked and everything contrary to righteousness, straight out of the womb. Also, as it says in Ecclesiastes, who can make that straight which the Most High has made crooked? But the just that's living by his faith is the nation of Israel, beginning with the elect right now. Verse 5, yeah, also because he transgresseth by wine, his different philosophies like democracy, freedom, women's rights, etc., etc. He is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied. And these Edomites don't stay, in their own, territory, dealing with their own business, which everywhere you Edomites dwell that's outside of Mount Petra is stolen land. So right there, you don't stay at home, but you go into these different countries and foment these coups and revolution to bring about, again, freedom and democracy, when it's really about coveting people's natural resources. But gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people, under that banner of, Western democracy, freedom, all that bullshit. But ultimately what? To get these people under that NW0, that great RESET, that fourth industrial revolution. One government, one currency, one religion, you name it. Verse 6, shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe to him that increaseth that which is not his? How long? Going into other people's lands and taking their resources. And as Lena Petrova just said, hey, this has been the MO of the Western powers for, the last 500 years or so. Going into different lands, taking people's stuff, and then demonizing the people in those lands and making them poorer. And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. And when you go into that word clay, it means debts or pledges. And when you look at a lot of these second and third world countries, they're in heavy debts to the West, especially to that US dollar, because their currency isn't, strong enough to, compare to the value of the dollar. So then they have to start selling off assets and resources to pay off, these governments, as well as these corporations that come and build infrastructure in those lands after wars that they fomented in those lands. Verse 7, shall they not rise up suddenly that shall bite thee, and awake that shall vex thee, and thou shalt be for booties unto them? And these different nations are starting to rise up against the West. Hence why you've got organizations like the BRICS showing up, which is giving a lot of these countries that have been under, Western oppression an alternative to using their currencies, especially the US dollar. And we're seeing a heavy push for de-dollarization right now. But that's it with this video. With this video, I hope you sincere Akim and Akwath were edified. Just keep strong. We are almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babal, Kwam Yasharallah, and until next time, Shalom.